Silent for decades, a secret has just resurfaced. One that could rewrite royal history forever. Tucked away behind layers of silence and ceremony, buried in the heart of Clarence House, a handwritten letter has emerged. Not just any letter, but a mother's final plea, untouched for more than 20 years, now stirring questions that no one in the royal family is prepared to answer. In the quiet of a locked safe, King Charles held onto a secret too powerful to speak aloud. It was from Diana. A final message addressed not to the public, not to the press, but to the two people she loved more than anything, her sons, William and Harry. The letter wasn't filled with titles or talks of duty. It wasn't about legacy or lineage. It was love, raw, urgent, and heartbreaking. In her own words, Diana begged her boys to live free from the crushing weight of royal expectation. She didn't want them imprisoned by tradition or molded into symbols of the crown. She wanted them protected, to feel love without condition, to be human before they were royal. And for William, who has spent years learning to wear the crown's heavy smile, and Harry, who has walked away from its cold embrace, the letter hit like a storm that had been building quietly behind palace doors. But why was this letter hidden for so long? Why did King Charles wait decades to reveal a message so deeply personal, so emotionally important? Insiders suggest it wasn't about preserving Diana's memory. It was about control, about image, about fear. The contents of the letter challenged everything the monarchy stood on: duty, restraint, silence. And in Diana's words, there was a gentle, yet defiant call to reject that life. For a royal institution built on obedience, that wasn't just uncomfortable. It was dangerous. William and Harry, already navigating a fragile relationship, were forced to confront not just their mother's wishes, but the secrets their father had kept from them. It added another layer of complexity to a bond already strained by grief, distance, and very different choices. For William, the revelation was bittersweet. A final whisper from the mother he lost too young. A reminder of what she saw in him. Not a king, not a figurehead, but her son. For Harry, it validated everything he'd felt, but never fully understood. That maybe the pain, the struggle, the deep emotional disconnect with the institution, it wasn't just rebellion. It was the legacy of a mother who wanted more for her children. And this wasn't the only time Diana reached beyond the grave. In 2004, during renovations at one of her former homes, another letter surfaced. This time, tucked inside a personal album and written directly to William. Not formal, not rehearsed, just a mother talking to her son. In that note, Diana showed a heartbreaking awareness of what her eldest would inherit. The pressure, the scrutiny, the weight of 1,000 expectations. She didn't urge him to wear the crown proudly. She told him to stay soft, to keep the child inside him alive, to hold on to joy, to resist the cold, calculated world he was being prepared to enter. That letter, written even before the public unraveling of her marriage, now reads like a prophecy, a warning, a plea. And it's led some to question the stories we've long accepted about the royal family. Whispers once dismissed as wild theories have begun to resurface. Questions about Diana's mysterious hospital stays in the early 1980s, about fertility treatments, about secrets too unsettling to ever make headlines. Could there have been more to her story than we were allowed to know? And if so, how much of it was carefully edited out to protect the palace? Some say these theories stretch too far. But in light of what we now know, how easily truths were buried, how long a simple letter could remain hidden, they don't seem so far-fetched anymore. Especially when you consider Harry's emotional distance from his father. The way he speaks not just with pain, but with detachment, as if something deeper and more unspoken lies between them. The emotional coldness, the unyielding silence. It wasn't just cultural. It was personal. Charles's relationship with Harry has long been described as strained. Observers have noticed the lack of warmth, the emotional gap that seems to grow with each passing year. And now, with the knowledge that this letter existed all along, and that Charles chose to keep it hidden, that gap feels like more than a generational misunderstanding. It feels like betrayal. It raises the uncomfortable question of how much a father should protect an institution at the expense of his children. Because Diana didn't write that letter to shake the monarchy. She wrote it to save her sons. This story doesn't live only in documents. It breathes in memories, in quiet glances, in the weight William now carries. While Harry stepped back from royal life, William has stayed, shaping himself into the image the crown demands. But behind that poised exterior, there's now a deeper storm. Because for all the appearances William knew, he held that letter in silence for years, carrying not just his mother's words, but her pain. And now that it's public, questions are swirling, not just about Charles, but about William's role too. Why didn't he speak? Was he trying to protect her memory? Or was he protecting the crown? The palace, as expected, has said nothing. No confirmation. No denial. Just a familiar silence, carefully constructed to outlast the news cycle. But behind that silence, sources say, the royal household is in crisis mode. Legal teams, advisors, and communication strategists are reportedly working overtime. Because if one letter has survived, who's to say there aren't more? Diaries, recordings, private messages that could once again shake the firm foundations of the monarchy. For the royal family, this is more than a scandal. It's a reckoning. Because Diana didn't just write as a mother, she wrote as a woman who had lived inside the palace and felt its shadows. She knew what it cost to wear the crown and still be human. She had already paid that price in full. Her honesty was disarming, sometimes uncomfortable. She talked about things royals were never meant to discuss: her mental health, her struggles with bulimia, the loneliness of living behind gold-trimmed walls. And by doing so, she broke a centuries-old rule: never show the cracks. Diana did more than challenge the monarchy, she exposed it. She peeled back the curtain and showed a world where image came before emotion, and silence was more valued than truth. But her legacy was never meant to destroy. It was meant to heal, to humanize, to love out loud. That's what made her different. That's what made her dangerous to the institution and beloved by millions. Even now, so many years after her death, the power of her words still echoes. And the palace feels it, not through loud protests, but through quiet shifts, through the way the public now expects more from their royals. Honesty, vulnerability, empathy. Qualities Diana embodied, even as they cost her everything. And now, her final wishes have become a mirror, reflecting everything the monarchy still refuses to confront. But perhaps the most heartbreaking consequence of all this is the deepening rift between her sons. What should have united them, her love, her words, her memory, has become another crack in their already fragile bond. Because for William, the crown is a calling. For Harry, it was a cage. And in Diana's letter, they both see their truths. One feels validated. The other feels conflicted. But both are haunted by the same thing: the question of what could have been if they had only known sooner. Even in death, Diana is still mothering, still protecting, still challenging. Her letter wasn't just a message. It was a lifeline. And in revealing it now, after so many years, the monarchy is being forced to reckon with the legacy of a woman it never truly understood, yet cannot seem to escape. The future now rests on William's shoulders more than ever. He stands at a crossroads: uphold the system that broke his mother or honor the spirit that made her unforgettable. That choice will shape not only the monarchy's future but also the public's trust in it. Because in an era that values transparency and authenticity, the old ways may no longer be enough. With Queen Elizabeth gone and King Charles aging, the weight of history presses more heavily on the next generation. And still, Diana's shadow lingers, not as a ghost, but as a guide. A reminder that love is louder than protocol, that truth, though often buried, always finds a way to surface. Her legacy is not in stone statues or royal titles. It's in the soft strength of her words, the courage of her convictions, and the hope that her sons will remember what she stood for. Not as a princess, but as a mother. Whether William and Harry can find their way back to each other remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: The letter once hidden has changed everything. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you as deeply as it continues to move the world, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like these alive.